The Supreme Court will allow President Donald Trump's ban on transgender people serving in the military. The ban can take effect while court challenges continue. A Seattle-based federal district judge paused Trump's ban in March. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt called the decision a massive victory, while lawyers for transgender service members called it a devastating blow.
This is a huge victory for the Trump administration as the Supreme Court ruled 6-3 that President Trump can continue on with the ban on transgenders being allowed in the military. Now, you have a lot of people that are pushing back on this and that are upset about it, but little do they realize, and in this video, I'm going to point it out and I'm going to show you exactly what's going on with this case, with this situation. And I'm also going to let you see the video clips of exactly how this resolution was reached and how it benefits America more than it hurts America, and how it benefits transgenders more than it hurts, regardless of what people may think. So I'm going to start with this article here, though, from Cake, which is an ABC outlet, and it says, "No more dudes in dresses. HECSF moves to separate service members with gender dysphoria after a court ruling." I'm going to read this briefly, and I'm going to get into the video clips. Let me shut this down. The Pentagon moved ahead with plans Thursday to begin the voluntary separation process for about 1,000 service members diagnosed with gender dysphoria after a Supreme Court ruling earlier this week. The U.S. Supreme Court on Tuesday allowed President Donald Trump's administration to ban transgender military service while a legal challenge moves forward in the lower courts. The secretary is encouraged by the Supreme Court's order staying the lower court's injunction, allowing the Department of Defense to carry out its policies associated with prioritizing military excellence and readiness, Chief Pentagon spokesman Sean Parnell said Thursday. The U.S. Department of Defense will issue guidance to the military departments and services ending the accession of individuals with a current diagnosis or history of or symptoms consistent with gender dysphoria and all non-medically necessary treatment. About 1,000 service members are self-identified as being diagnosed with gender dysphoria, according to the Pentagon. The department will extend this voluntary separation period for 30 days for active component service members and 60 days for reserve component service members, and proceed with processing for involuntary separations after those periods, according to a memo. Shortly after taking over at the Pentagon, U.S. Department of Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth said service members diagnosed with gender dysphoria would be processed for separation by their respective military branches, according to a memo. Hegseth spoke about the issue at Special Operations Forces Week on Tuesday. "Everything starts and ends with warriors. From training to the battlefield," Hegseth said, "we are leaving wokeness and weakness behind. No more pronouns, no more climate change obsession, no more emergency jab mandates, no more dudes and dresses. We're done with that." You know, I'd say jab rather than this word that starts with a V on YouTube because they tag you. But let's think about it for a second. Then I'll get into this next clip where we really gonna hear exactly how the Supreme Court came to this ruling. But let's think about this for a second. The fact of the matter is this, okay? Transgender are people with the gender dysphoria, which is what they label it, where somebody's born in one body and believes that there's something else. And listen, I'm not here to say whether that person genuinely believes that or feels that way or not. It's not my expertise, and it's not something I suffer with. But I really give kudos to those who self-identified and let it be known and is leaving on their own. But those males that are, you know, going through this transgender transition period, they're taking medication to reduce their testosterone. So they're literally taking medicine to make them softer, more docile, and weaker. Losing muscle mass, losing testosterone takes away that aggression. And when you're in the military, which is supposed to be a lethal fighting force, reducing your testosterone for a male makes you a liability on the battlefield. Another thing, think about people that have poor eyesight, or somebody who's hard of hearing, or someone who has any other one leg. I had one guy I knew whose one leg was shorter than the other one, and he wasn't able to get in for some reason like that. But let's think about them. The military does not allow them in because of these physical issues. Doesn't make them a bad person, and it may be something that's out of their control. But for whatever reason, the military does not allow them in. Why? Because somebody with poor eyesight can become a liability. Somebody that's hard of hearing will be a liability. For years, women were not allowed on the front lines because they were considered a liability. So now we got somebody that's a transgender, right? Let's say it's a male that's transitioning. Now that they're in battle, they're taking hormone pills to reduce testosterone. They may be growing out their mammaries, which is another word for breastises, and other things that go on with this. But what if they're out in battle? And what if this person is in the middle of treatment and now they're out there fighting, but they can't get to treatment when they're out in another country? What happens to this person? Are they able to compete? Are they able to be right there with their brothers in arms and sisters in arms and be able to protect them and hold the lines with them if need be? Nobody knows. But why take that risk when it could cost another service member their lives? So this isn't about an attack on transgenders. People try to make it like, oh, you just don't want transgenders because they're a liability. Why in the world would you want somebody on a fighting force when everybody is testosterone up, ready to go out there and get busy? But this person is more reduced and more docile. And now, not only are you looking out for yourself and your brother in arms that is ready to go get it, you got to look out for this person who may not be as ready to go get it and may not have that piss and vinegar in them to really go out there and attack and be brutal like they need to be. If you enjoyed this video, do me a solid and hit that like button. I'll never ask you for a cash app or a super chat, but you hitting that like button, it does help. It's like currency because it helps spread the video around. And if you aren't subscribed to the channel, subscribe. And once you do, make sure you hit the notification bell and select all. That way you'll be notified when I upload new videos. So it's not something, I mean, listen, if a man wants to wear a dress and do his thing, this is America, he has the right to do that, but not when it could be at the detriment of another service member's life. That's not fair. That's not right. And if somebody with poor eyesight or poor hearing can't get in, why should somebody who is in the middle of treatment or taking taking hormone pills to reduce testosterone, why should they be allowed in? Or if they have gender dysphoria, why should they be allowed in? Because again, whether it be right or wrong, when you have a team full of men that are fighting and they know that there's one person in there that may be turned on or likes the same persuasion, whether it's right or not, that does create a problem. Just like in the sports locker room, why you don't hear athletes coming out as openly gay. Because most players probably don't care what you do in your bedroom. But man, and I'm not saying, and you know, they're not going to feel as comfortable in the locker room sitting around chilling and talking like they do, knowing that this person is turned on by the men. And they might not be attracted to anybody in that locker room, but it's supposed to be a team. So anything that could cause the team any disruption, why have it? There's enough disruptions that happen anyway, just like with the military. There's enough issues that people have to deal with. Having a transgender issue on top of that, why? When it doesn't have to be that way. We've got enough able-bodied men willing to go fight. As a matter of fact, recruitment has shot through the roof since President Trump has taken office. It plummeted under Biden, shot up now under President Trump. So let's get into this news report where they really break down the justice's decision and how they got to it.
The Supreme Court is allowing President Trump to implement his ban on transgender people serving in the military, at least for now. The High Court lifting a lower court injunction blocking the policy while litigation continues. Our senior Washington correspondent, Devin Dwyer, joins me now. All right, Devin, what do we know?
The Supreme Court, Kira, is letting the policy go forward in a divided vote, 6-3. The three liberal justices indicated they would dissent from this move. The Trump administration had asked the High Court to lift a block on the policy that was issued by a judge out in Washington state. That judge, appointed by George W. Bush, said that this policy was discriminatory, unfairly exclusionary, and unsupported by the evidence. He said it would likely be struck down, but the Supreme Court now reversing course. What this means, Kira, is that the Trump administration can now begin to discharge transgender service members who have served their country for the last 4 years in the United States military. There are about 4,200 active duty troops who are trans, according to the Pentagon figures. Many of those have served in combat. Many have been awarded. A group of 7 of those trans service members sued to challenge this policy. But today, at least temporarily, Kira, the Supreme Court has turned away their appeals.
So what happens now?
Those discharges can begin. The litigation, however, Kira, does continue. It's in the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals out in California. That means ultimately the Supreme Court could actually take up this case on the merits. But what the court is signaling today is that the President of the United States is owed broad deference over how the military is run and who they can allow into the military. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has argued that transgender service members pose a problem for unit cohesion and military readiness, lethality, although judges have found no evidence of that. But But today, again, with this Supreme Court decision, the administration can move forward with the same policy it had back in the first term, removing those service members, around 4,000 of them, though the Biden administration allowed them to serve. So a dramatic change and a real setback for those who did serve and those who have sacrificed for their country, Kira.
Yeah, that's because the Biden administration was doing everything they could to weaken our military. Anybody could see that. They didn't want to fund it. They opened it up to transgenders. They started had transgender hour on bases, transgender shows on military bases, climate stuff, all of this race separation stuff, celebrate Juneteenth celebration. What does any of that have to do with the red, white, and blue and the green? And that's what happened. We lost sight of what the military is for. It's not a social club to go in and just express yourself. No, you are an employee, property of the United States government, trained up to protect the liberties of this country. And see, one thing that, and this was an ABC reporting, that's why I use the lefties, because you know they dislike it when they have to report on something like this. But he's being disingenuous when he said, oh, it's a divided court. It was 6-3. It was 2-1. So now the divided is 5-4. 6-3. No, that's a majority, a big time majority. Why? Because they get it. This has nothing to do with identity. It is the military. Now, this was a corporation. You know, hey, listen, you may have something there, or a private entity. Fine. Private company or security force, maybe there. But this is the United States military, and it only has one commander, and that is the president of the United States. And the fact that these left-wing extremist judges feel like that they can run the country from a federal bench using national injunctions. And luckily on May the 15th, the Supreme Court is finally going to step in and do something about this. It's either going to be the Wild Wild West, where from now on, no president will ever be able to get anything accomplished. Because remember now, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. Or the Supreme Court is going to step in, shut it down, and let it be how it's supposed to be, where each president has the right to fulfill the agenda that the American people voted for. We voted for President Trump. He was very transparent in everything he was going to do. But these people want to try to block it. Why? Because they know it'll work. And once it does, it's already going to be, it's very hard for me to foresee Democrat leadership winning major elections, national elections, anytime soon. But when President Trump gets this economy rolling where it is going to be, gets the crime set down, gets everybody making more money and feeling more safe, it'll be a cold day, and you know what, before the Democrats ever see national power again. And rightfully so, because they're Soros funded. And I'm going to do a video because something else just leaked. And when you hear about it, how this whole border crisis was intentional, how the whole jab situation was intentional and funded by George Soros. But that's a whole nother video. But if you've stayed in, you watched it this far, I really do appreciate you. I want to thank you for that. If you haven't already, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, tell me what you feel about it. Most importantly, you make sure you be safe, you be great. I'm Brian Maxwell saying I look forward to seeing you at the top. Over and out, y'all.